Hi, I'm Anita Walker, Executive Director of the Mass Cultural Council, and welcome to this week's first Culture Chat. My guest today is Lee Heald. Lee is the architect of the longest standing, I dare say, let's just assert it, Lee, the longest standing, I would say, community revitalization program engined by the arts.
Well, as you know, we were the first programs to start under the Cultural Economic Development Program. Then it was the Adams Program for Economic Creative Economy, and now it's Creative Placemaking. So we've been here 20 years, and
if you haven't heard of VAHA, which I'd be shocked if everybody on the planet hasn't heard of VAHA, but VAHA was an aha of Lee and her friends and neighbors and community in New Bedford, but it has been contagious and infectious and an inspiration, and we call it the poster child of something that the arts and culture can do, can really turn on their downtowns. So as Lee just said, started about 20 years ago, and it's really all about bringing people out, bringing people together, connecting people with the arts and culture, all in place and helping to make place. So as we have been doing over the last few weeks here on our Culture Chat program, we spend a lot of time at the Mass Cultural Council thinking about and trying to find ways to assist our organizations and artists in Massachusetts who are suffering greatly from the impact of the coronavirus. But, you know, there are wonderful seeds and wonderful flowers that are truly coming up in the midst of all this. And it's part and parcel of the resilience of our field. And Lee represents one of those, because here she has this fantastic program that's all about bringing people outside and together, and definitely within 6 feet of each other. My goodness, what did you think when you found out you couldn't do that?
Well, Anita, as you know, we've been together for 20 years, and so it's every second Thursday, and people have that expectation that they're going to come out and see their neighbor. We have about 65 partners, so it's a wide, diverse, it's really a platform as well as an umbrella. We started with a project with the community revitalization, and we represent all sort of 6 sectors of society. So it's not just arts and culture, it's health and human services, it's communities of faith, it's education, it's business, and the environment. And so we're really a very diverse platform, and people have expectations of us. In March, AHA was the last public program in New Bedford before the mayor and the governor and everyone kind of shut down with this very challenging situation that we're in. And so that weekend, I started thinking about how do we meet the challenge, because it is a challenge. And as I told you before we started the program, I listened to a concert that was supposed to be put on live from the Lutheran Church in Worcester for Bach's birthday. And instead of doing a full St. Matthew's Passion, they did an organ concert. And I was actually out in my backyard gardening, as if you knew me well, you'd know that's where I'd be, and listening to this fabulous concert. And I thought, well, I may not have driven to Worcester, but now I get to experience this in my own backyard. And I started talking to some of the people in New Bedford. The College of Visual and Performing Arts, in spite of the fact that no one could go into the building from the public, was actually mounting the exhibition of the MFA graduate students. And they were kind of trying to think about putting it online. And one of the people that was programming around that was doing a dance party. So I wrote to Salty and said, oh, if we did AHA, could you do the dance party? And she said, well, sure, I could, but I'm a student who's going home and I live in Singapore, but I can host it from Singapore. And so the conversation really started with all of these partners to think about, well, actually, we're going to go virtual. This is an important thing. And we are able to do it because of the technology. We had to figure a few things out. But I think one of AHA's strengths has always been sort of thinking about going back to mission. And so New Bedford is a community that steps up and participates. In 2017, as you know, we were named the creative community, mostly I think because of the way we've used arts and culture to really raise up and connect people from different areas. So if you think about your mission, and your mission is to connect, then this is a time period when you think, okay, what is it that we can do now that we wouldn't have done before? Or what is it that we can do now that we might not do again? And what is it that we can do now that when this whole thing is done and we're on the other side, instead of waiting till we're on the other side, what are the things that we want to think about that will leverage us to be in a different position on the other side? And so we've discovered some really wonderful outcomes from that. And I think the second thing is when you think about outcomes, it's not just presenting the program, the virtual AHA, and connecting people, but it's giving people that emotional connection. So people, one of the comments was, although we're not in the same place, we are all together. And I think right now that's really critical for us, particularly in the arts and culture field, because we're not frontline in the medical field. You know, we're not with food insecurity or security networks. We are really the people who carries it's sort of the heart and soul of the community. And so we are people who need to carry that and carry that forward. I said before that the AHA has a different theme every night, and it allows us, as different partners step up and they're showcased. April has always been the Sustainable South Coast. And so when I started writing to people and saying, you know, would you participate? Would you do something? Would you offer? What, you know, how are you going to do this? People said, do we have to stay on theme? I said, well, this year for me, the Sustainable South Coast, this is really a gift and a presentation. And it's really about what sustains us personally and the ways in which we sustain each other in the community. And that really took off. And the people we work with for Marketing Medium Studios, Carrie and John Cox, said, virtual AHA, we should call it VAHA. And all of a sudden it just popped and it was off and running. So there you go.
Everybody's going to put a V in front of their third Thursdays, Bird Thursdays, or whatever they're calling their special day. So let's dig into the weeds just a little bit about this. So you have something you've been doing for 20 years and people get it and they come together, and it really is part of the life, of New Bedford and the whole area. So how do you take that, which really is about human connection, right, physically as well as intellectually and artistically and culturally, and put that on a laptop screen like this?
So it's a challenge, but I always talk about one of the things we do is it's really about building relationships. And so we are a community event, and it's not transactional. We are free and open to the public. We get great sponsorship and support from a variety of people and corporate people, the state, the community foundation. I mean, we are really the Island Foundation. We are very central and enabled by the community. And so it's really the sets of relationships. So you're not really just putting the picture and the experience on the screen, but you have that whole network of relationships. As people said, you know, we couldn't see each other, but we, you know, all the chat lines were going, all of the Facebook Live were going, who's in the room? Oh yeah, I see you, I haven't seen you. You know, I mean, it was a very, it was a rich conversation within the parameters of the screen. And I think that people who have developed relationships with each other, that's present for them. And they get the feeling of being together as much as they can. So that's the emotional part. The technical part. So we had a Zoom family phone call yesterday, and I said to the millennials, so is there any hope that there will be a meta platform that will link Zoom and Google and Facebook Live and Google Hangouts? And the millennials said to me, no, you're going to have to get used to whatever it is. But what we did in the meantime was we redid our website. So we went to WordPress and interactive format. I had talked to the Community Foundation immediately and said, oh, help. We really need to, if we're going to do this, we need to have an interactive platform. And they gave us immediately, without question, an operating sort of grant to get ourselves up and technologically ready to go. So usually the AHA format is like a TV guide, a huge screen with, you know, where you're going and geography and stuff. And this time it was a whole linked page that you clicked on the live link and you went to wherever it was. Or if you came early and had to sign up for Zoom. It wasn't perfect technologically. We've got a long way to go. I think our mantra is that in addition to everything else, we are all learning together. Yeah. I laughingly said that I went from boomer to Zoomer in about 5 days, and it's not a perfect transformation by any means. If you know me well, it's not my strength. But we're all learning together, and I think out of this will come an opportunity to think differently about how we deliver product and what we're doing. for instance, one of the singer-songwriters, we had a Zoom that went around to everybody's living room for singer-songwriters. She's written a wonderful song about 6 feet away. And now that we have an interactive WordPress website, she's actually recorded that for us. So pretty soon when you go to the AHA website, you're going to hear this original song that was written for the last AHA night about social distancing and being 6 feet away. So it kind of gives us those things that I think will be better for us in the future. It will give us different opportunities.
I want to pick up on that learning together comment that you made, because one of the nice things about learning together in this technology, which we all are, is therefore we are all forgiving of each other. And I will say that there have been a couple of little hiccups on our little culture chat program once or twice, but you know what? We're all learning together. The other thing that we're doing while we're learning together is we are actually crafting the best practices for the first time. Technology is something that I think probably a lot in the cultural community, well, some embrace it, and actually it is part and parcel of their artistic product. But then there are those who kind of say it's sort of anti my artistic product. You know, my music heard in real time, in real life, in the real world is not the same as my music delivered through technology. And this is such an opportunity for us to, instead of being sort of the victim of technology, to become the master of it. Do you feel like in a way you're starting to write those best practices and just sort of, you know, take, as a boomer zoomer myself, I've always felt like a victim of technology, but can we sort of take control of it?
I think I can admire it from afar. I don't think it's ever going to be, I mean, I can think about what needs to be done. Am I going to be the doer? No. But you know what? I sent you a Vimeo that came out that maybe you want to show, because one of the things that happened was this is a wonderful response to some work that's going on in New Bedford, and it went viral. It will give people an idea about New Bedford. And also the two artists, Ryan McPhee and Jeff St. Pierre, were both out of work. Their businesses closed down, and they decided to go paint. And so they got permission to paint on this building. And so this is a piece of visual New Bedford. And I know that you now know how to do sound. And yes, great.
Here we go. Oh, that was wonderful, Lee. And what's left behind, the painting, that will be here hopefully after the pandemic has moved on.
Well, what they said was that it's crying a tear now, and as the pandemic moves along, it's going to sprout flowers, and they're going to change it. The building's due to be demolished, I think, in about a year, and so there'll be kind of a conversation with that space. But it has that feeling of, here's what artists do in cities where artists and artisanry and creativity is respected. You step up and you move on. And it's not that all of the stories are positive, but I think that there is a moment in all of the challenges that we're going through right now that you have to kind of look on that side of it and ask the questions about what you're going to do now that you're not going to be able to do in the future. And clearly capturing that moment was really important.
So for those of you who are joining us in the conversation, if you go to your chat, we have posted that video. So if you want to take a look at it over and over again, that's on the chat. Also, we have what's called the Q&A function. So that is also a little button down at the bottom of your screen. And I am really interested in hearing some questions, comments, reactions from some of you who are listening in and part of the conversation. Because one of the things that I think that this medium is very good at is it's good at speaking out to people, lecturing. It's good at a one-on-one conversation. But this whole engaging part, engaging the broader audience. Lee, I'm going to tell you, this is a sad story. So we decided to have a social hour at the Mass Cultural Council at 5 o'clock one day and get everybody on the Zoom. So here there were all these little squares with, 15, 20 people who managed to show up. And we didn't know what to do. Like, we were talking on top of each other, or, you know, in a real party, you're having like a couple little conversations over here and a couple of over there, and sort of mastering this technology to really engage other people, I think, is one of the big challenges, because it is that connecting that is the superpower of the arts and culture.
Right.
So I invite people who are listening in and part of our Zoom conversation to type out a few questions and comments to become part of this. But meantime, while you're doing that, Lee, tell us about some of the content, some of the things that you have had. If you go to your website, what are we going to see?
So if you go to the website, you will see a variety of things. So some people are doing things independently that they've been doing, and they're offering them on AHA night. So the Symphony put up a concert. They've also been fabulous about doing Friday and Saturday night concerts. You'll see the tour of the College of Visual Performing Arts. We had a virtual wine tasting, which are, they're turning out to be quite popular, and they were written up in, I think, the Globe this weekend. So Anthony's drawing room, you could actually pick up the wine curbside beforehand, and you could sign up, and then we did a whole wine tasting. I mean, I was doing the board, so I wasn't drinking wine, but I looked at that. There are a lot of musician in different people's living rooms. So we went from one to another and kind of saw them. We had some virtual tours. We also kind of divided it into things that were just happening and live on Facebook. Allison Wells did a great papier-mâché thing, to things that we said 24/7, anytime from your couch during the, while you're home. Because one of the things that happens, I think, is that people look for resources, and we're kind of a central clearinghouse for a lot of resources, and wanted to kind of connect people with things going on downtown. So the Whale is offering, they're the waterfront area historically, and they're offering tours of some of their restored homes. The National Park put on their Junior Ranger project online. And so you can go with your kids and do the Junior Ranger program, and then send in and get your Junior Ranger badge. What else? There was a virtual tour of the Nathan Polly Johnson House for Frederick Douglass. And then there was a lecture at the Fishing Heritage Center. So there were concerts, there were singer-songwriters, there were some activities, there were some fun, funky things. There was the whole dance party. There was a meditation session, there was yoga. If you tuned in earlier in the day, you could go with the Buttonwood Zoo zookeeper and meet an animal. There were a couple of piano concerts. So, I mean, it was a range of things. It wasn't the full of, you know, AHA nights are really quite packed with a variety of things. But over time, we were able to like go during the day and then throughout the week to make people aware of all the different kinds of things that they might like to do. So that was one of the things for us, that we got both reach in time and reach in space.
So we now have some of our conversationalists out and about, virtual conversationalists joining in here. Genevieve Day wrote in, this has been really inspiring. At the Fenway Alliance, we organized 2 free culture festivals in our community, Porch Fest in June and Opening Our Doors in October. This conversation has been really helpful as we think about how to adapt these new circumstances. I'm excited to check out the new VAHA website. And by the way, it is in your chat. One question I have is, what were some of the technical difficulties that you had, and how will you fix them next time? Thank you, Genevieve.
A great question. I just want to say to Genevieve also, there's a project here in New Bedford right now that someone is doing porch photographs of people. So it's for a donation to the United Way Fund, the COVID fund. And it's a local photographer who's going around and taking portraits of people on their porches. So you might want to think about something like that in addition to your porch festival. The technical problems are Zoom, and we're all having Zoom challenges. We're all learning how to use Zoom. And at the same time, it's not that, you know, we've got enough challenges in the world. There's Zoom bombing and all of that stuff. So we've had to be thoughtful about that. I will say that one of the 2 o'clock concerts did get Zoom bombed, and we all went back and changed all of our settings in Zoom, and we had no trouble during the rest of the night. It takes a little bit of energy to kind of make sure that you've got appropriate co-hosts, and you not only have to look at your upside and say, oh, this is great and fun and it's a new adventure, but you have to look at your downside and think about what are your liabilities. And we're a local arts and culture program. We're part of the community. And so it was not perfect in terms of production value. If you went and looked online, you could see the Rotterdam Symphony doing Jesu, Joy of Man's Desire with, you know, 44 people, all in key, all in concert, and it was beautiful. The production value was gorgeous. I don't think the production value of our offerings were fabulous, and I think we're kind of working on that. We're also working on making sure that the website is more, is done earlier. We were kind of rolling through the time as we went, and so I think that we need more upfront time to make sure that we've caught all our glitches. But I mean, that's really it. And as I say, we're all learning together. So next time, we also tried to connect people who had done Facebook Live with people who are learning Facebook Live. Actually, tomorrow, the Mass Humanities has an open workshop, which Brian Boyles, I think, talked about when he was on. There is a whole open workshop about how to use Zoom for public programming, because I think in the next month, next couple of weeks, you will find more and more people offering workshops in Facebook Live and streaming Facebook and Facebook before, and then putting it up at the time that you're on, you know. So for your porch concert, can everyone do a Facebook Live and then just all release them between 5 and 8 on one day or one afternoon or something like that? I mean, there's a lot of different ways to frame what you're doing depending on what you want the outcome to be.
And there's a lot of experimentation, and we love the early adopters who make it for us so that we can learn from you. We have an anonymous listener who wrote in, while the desire to implement art programs to express ourselves is one thing, the bigger challenge is to get buy-in from town government, who is currently incredibly busy handling the pandemic. Do you have any recommendations on how we can make these projects happen, resources we can reach out to, grants, and so forth? But I think that keynote, it is so true. If you need permissions, for example, to paint a building from town or city government, and you almost feel, you know, sad to interrupt or interfere because there's so much going on.
I think we're lucky in New Bedford. I mean, one of the things that's made us a creative city is we do have a variety of different groups who are working both in parallel and in connection to make this work. There's Margot Saulnier is the arts and culture strategist, and New Bedford has an arts and culture plan. There's a lot of work at the Community Foundation and the Creative Commonwealth Project that is supporting people like Superflat. They're doing murals. And so there develops a vocabulary and an ability to marshal resources or to know the person to call. And I think that nothing succeeds like success. And so if you start having a track record of validation and participation and support, and so you get people doing Vimeos that are, you know, played on all sorts of platforms, and it really, it not only shapes how you think about the problem, but it shapes how you think about the potential solutions. And I think it minimizes risk in some way. And so, you know, New Bedford is lucky in that way. In terms of resources, no one paid those people to paint or do the video. And so we have a community where people really step up and donate. So the programs that we did on AHA night, no one received payment for putting those up. And we've always had free performers and free community stuff. And so I think that that is the other thing, that while we are very professional and we work really hard at that, there's a lot of people coming to the table with gifts for their community. I think that's particularly potent and powerful right now when the resources are so needed in so many larger ways that people come and give these gifts to us.
Louisa Harris wrote us, for those of us who are working on projects to provide encouragement and inspiration through this difficult time, what's the best way for artists to submit their work, get it out, get it shared through your organization and others?
I think, let's see, how do we say it? That's a really good question. I think if you were local, I mean, you would work with your local government. Most towns, if you look at the Mass Cultural Council, you can look at, for instance, communities that have cultural districts. Because what I will say is that AHA takes place in the footprint of downtown, which is the Seaport Cultural District. So there is a framework to make that happen. There are also support from the local cultural councils. So there are, every city and town has some sort of cultural council set up that to either connect or mediate or help think about that. So, I mean, I think that those would be my sources. I mean, what do you think, Anita? You know the field.
Thank you for saying, those were my first two. The cultural district, and we now have a 50-ish. I think we're almost at 50, 49 to 50. New Bedford, we were going to have your neighbor Fall River join us as a cultural district, but the meeting was canceled because of the coronavirus.
Yeah,
so we hope to be back, hopefully before the end of this fiscal year to make that happen.
You can find the cultural districts listed on the Mass Cultural Council website. So, I mean, that's a good place to start because it really is about relationships and thinking about that. And then you also have a whole list of grants. And if you're looking for funding, that's a whole different sort of network.
It's great, though, that you mentioned the local cultural councils, because there is not an artist in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that is not living in a place with a local cultural council. If you're not, then you're not living in Massachusetts. Right. So it's just a good relationship to have because they do grant making, local grant making every year. And many of them do events. Art Week, unfortunately, had to be canceled in May this year, again, because of the coronavirus. But these are things will come back, and these are great opportunities to become connected as an artist to events. When VAHA goes back to AHA, all these kinds of activities really kind of start. I think to your point, Lee, you have not had any difficulty whatsoever with your city and town because you've been working for 20 years on building that solid, trusted relationship with your city and town, and that's how it works generally. So building that trusting relationship and building that platform is in advance of the crisis is the best. Right. We are within about 60 seconds of when we typically wrap these up. So Lee, if there was one, oh yes, that was going to be your good closing remark. What do you got there?
This is the new seltzer from Coca-Cola. I wish we were getting part of, talking about funding, I wish we were getting part of the royalties, but cheers.
And we have put your website up in the chat along with the Vimeo video. So please take a look at that. And you don't even have to live in New Bedford to participate in VAHA.
I know, it's a really exciting thing for us. You know, check us out. We'll clearly be virtual in May. I expect that we'll be virtual in June, which is our Pride Month. So that will be interesting. And hopefully back in July, clearly back in August. That's what our hope is. So,
but either way, part of this will go on, won't it?
I think that now we see that we do want to do more stuff online. I think it will be a companion piece as opposed to an absolute. But I also think it's a great place to have people from Singapore offer program. I mean, I think that that is a bigger opportunity for all of us, actually.
Two big thank yous from Genevieve and Louisa, who asked you questions, and a big thank you from us as well, Lee. Thank you so much for all you're doing in New Bedford, and stay safe and keep in touch.
We are honored to participate. Thank you, Anita. Always good to talk to you.
Bye-bye.